North Sea, February 1940. World War II is only 5 months in. Under a bright moon, 6 powerful Kriegsmarine destroyers slice through the icy waters, engines humming with purpose. They navigate towards the Dogger Bank, an area teeming with enemy fishing trawlers, some suspected of being spies. The sea is eerily calm, but the crews are tense. Suddenly, barely louder than the ship's engines, a 2-engine aircraft hums in the background. It's night, and no one can see it. Maybe it's a British reconnaissance model shadowing their formation, ready to direct other ships or aircraft toward the Kriegsmarine flotilla. Perhaps it's an actual bomber, waiting on final orders to attack. With no time to lose, the destroyers prep their guns, the tension mounting with every second. Operation Vikinga was supposed to be simple. Instead, it became one of the worst military operations of the entire war. In early 1940, the Kriegsmarine turned its attention to Dogger Bank, a strategic sandbank in the shallow North Sea. Approximately 60 miles off the east coast of England, this historically rich fishing ground was a crucial midpoint between the British Isles and mainland Europe, vital for controlling naval routes and monitoring enemy movements. The shallow waters also hindered submarines, making it ideal for surface ship patrols. Additionally, Kriegsmarine intelligence suspected British trawlers were spying on German naval movements and locating swept channels on the Westfold mining belt, a defensive barrier of mines along the coast. Most importantly, at any given time, up to 60 British trawlers, vital for the UK's food supply, were easy prey for armed naval ships. Controlling Dogger Bank seemed like a low-risk, high-reward assignment, and a mission to attack it, Operation Vikinga, Viking in German, was quickly greenlit. Disrupting these fishing grounds would financially hurt Britain, which relied heavily on its fishing vessels. Top brass also hoped that destroying these trawlers would lure out British naval forces. The Kriegsmarine planned to ambush these rescuing ships with a devastating surprise attack. Knowing their destroyers were fast and well-armed, and believing the British naval presence in the area was weak, the Germans planned to send 6 destroyers from their first destroyer flotilla: Friedrich Eckholt, Liebrecht Maas, Richard Belzer, Max Schultz, Theodor Riedel, and Erich Kollner, all led by Captain José Fritz Berger. Under Operation Vikinga, they were meant to take over the British ships and force the Royal Navy to send additional vessels to Dogger Bank, scattering its forces. To this end, the Kriegsmarine needed Luftwaffe pilots to escort their vessels to the area. However, lacking their own naval aviation branch, they had no choice but to rely on the Luftwaffe. Throughout the entire war, cooperation between the German Kriegsmarine and the German Luftwaffe was famously poor. The two branches had different priorities and perspectives, often competing for resources and influence. The former focused on surface warfare, while the latter prioritized air superiority and strategic bombing of Britain. These differences in doctrine and culture led to frequent conflicts and a lack of a unified command structure. So when the Kriegsmarine requested fighter cover to help execute Operation Vikinga, they were denied, a crucial mistake Germany would later regret. On February 21, 1940, the 6 German destroyers left their base at Wilhelmshaven. Split into 2 groups, each led by a flotilla leader, they steamed towards Dogger Bank, hoping to arrive the following morning. At 7 p.m., they raced through a cleared channel between minefields at high speed, all without the requested air fighter cover. On board, every sailor was on edge and taking extra precautions. That evening, only a few clouds covered the sky, making the warships clearly visible from a distance as they headed northeast. Aware of their bright wake in the cold water, everyone worked together to clear their own minefield as quickly as possible. Only moments later, around 7:13 p.m., despite the loud noise of the ship's turbines and ventilation, the lookouts on one of the leading ships, Friedrich Eckholt, heard the distinctive hum of a 2-engined aircraft. After a few minutes of searching by hundreds of sailors aboard the 6 ships, the mystery aircraft, likely a bomber, was spotted above in the moonlit sky, flying at 1,500 to 2,500 feet. The model passed the vessels once, not showing any hostile signs, but also not displaying any known identification signals. The unknown aircraft then reversed its course and crossed the flotilla's path a second time, before disappearing into the night. Without showing any identification signals so far, the aircraft above appeared to be hostile to the crews aboard the destroyers. The Kriegsmarine First Flotilla needed to act, and fast. Minutes later, the mystery aircraft was back, flying above the ships. Unbeknownst to the Kriegsmarine, the mystery aircraft was not the enemy, but one of two Luftwaffe Henkel HE-111 bombers also in the vicinity to carry out a long-postponed anti-shipping operation. Down below, everyone remained oblivious. Still unsure about its identity, the flotilla commander ordered a speed reduction from 25 to 17 knots in order to produce a smaller and thus less visible wake. Above, the pilot faced the same dilemma. Earlier, Fliegerkorps 10, a Luftwaffe Air Corps responsible for anti-shipping operations, reported his mission to the Naval Command for North Sea operations. However, due to communication failures and ignored coordination requests, neither the Luftwaffe nor the Kriegsmarine were correctly informed about each other's activities. As the unknowingly friendly aircraft inched closer, the gunners aboard Richard Beitzen and Erich Kollner, the second and third ships in the line, quickly readied their guns and aimed. Right before they fired, the bridge crew of the fifth ship in line, Max Schultz, managed to see a German cross on the aircraft's wing. It was too late, and rounds of their 20mm anti-aircraft guns rained around the Henkel bomber, prompting it to return fire. Now, each side was convinced the other was undeniably hostile. After a few moments of thunderous battle with seemingly no casualties, the excitement dwindled, and the aircraft disappeared into the night again. Now, the crews aboard the ships were more alert than ever. Nobody in the flotilla command believed Max Schultz's reports of the model being German, and in a hurry, the German ships continued their journey toward Dogger Bank. At 7:43 p.m., the crew aboard Max Schultz once again detected the aircraft approaching from the rear, sending off a radio transmission, quote, "Aircraft has been sighted in the black cloud of the moon." Seconds later, the HE-111 crew dropped 2 bombs into the sea just behind one of the ships in line, Liebrecht Maas. This time, all destroyers opened fire with their loud and powerful anti-aircraft guns, until suddenly, a third bomb struck the destroyer between the forward superstructure and the forward funnel. Germany had just bombed one of their own destroyers. Liebrecht Maas slowed down and veered starboard, signaling that she'd been hit and needed help immediately. She initially showed no visible signs of fire, smoke, or damage. Still, some of the other destroyers reversed course to assist their damaged comrade, but they were immediately ordered back into formation by lead ship Friedrich Eckholt, which then closed up to the damaged ship to investigate. While approaching the stricken Liebrecht Maas, the crew of Friedrich Eckholt prepared for rescue, readying equipment and towing gear. Now only 1,500 feet away, the men aboard got a front row seat to the chaos. At 7:56 p.m., the aft anti-aircraft guns of Liebrecht Maas erupted in a desperate attempt to fend off the upcoming attacker. In retaliation, the Henkel bomber immediately released 2 more bombs upon the beleaguered destroyer. The first exploded just behind her, sending a colossal water fountain into the night sky. However, the second found its mark in the area of the ship's second funnel. The resulting explosion was a catastrophic fireball nearly 2 masts high, illuminating the dark North Sea, followed by a massive cloud of smoke that engulfs the entire destroyer. The minutes passed slowly as the wind cleared the smoke, revealing a horrifying reality. Liebrecht Maas was broken in 2, and her 330 crew members were now facing a dire situation, all within 120 seconds. Friedrich Eckholt's report echoed over the radio, quote, "To all ships, Maas is sinking. Send boats." It seemed like things couldn't get any worse, and yet they did. The Liebrecht Maas breaking in 2 significantly impacted the flotilla's command and organization, and panic and disarray quickly set in. The remaining destroyers slowly steamed toward the wreck, and the survivors in the water, ready to pull them from the freezing waters as soon as possible. Erich Kollner, Friedrich Eckholt, and Richard Beitzen were beginning protocol when at 8:04 p.m., a second huge explosion rang into everyone's ears. Lookouts aboard Beitzen quickly reported another air attack, 2 near misses and 1 solid hit on another destroyer further away. Still, nobody had actually seen nor heard the aircraft that made this approach to the German ships. Theodor Riedel, only 325 feet away from the explosion, was headed toward the fireball when her underwater microphone suddenly recorded what sounded like a submarine at starboard. In a frenzy, fearing a British submarine lurked nearby, Theodor Riedel immediately dropped 4 depth charges where they assumed the sound originated. However, because they exploded too close to the destroyer, the rudder got jammed and was stuck maneuvering in circles. A lookout on the Erich Kollner then yelled that he had spotted a British submarine. Now, chaos and confusion were in full bloom among the German destroyers. But there was no submarine. Rescue efforts had to be immediately paused while the surviving ships hunted for the submarine, leaving hundreds of sailors alone in the freezing waters awaiting rescue. Aboard Eric Colner, the skipper decided to try to ram the non-existent submarine. The next half hour was pure chaos. A periscope or submarine sail was seen dozens of times every minute. Even the wrecks of the sinking destroyers were identified as submarines. The lookout spotted countless torpedoes when the destroyers were racing all over the damaged area. It wasn't until 8:36 p.m. when Flotilla Commander Berger ordered the retreat of the remaining destroyers, as the danger of losing another was too high. Just as the smoke settled, everyone realized another major oversight. As if this dangerous incident weren't enough, the formation now consisted of 4, not 5 ships. At some point in the confusion, Max Schultz had fallen silent. In reality, she was behind the sudden sounds during the rescue, as she'd likely hit one of the 120 mines laid in the area by British destroyers nearly a month earlier, which they would have likely known if the Kriegsmarine and Luftwaffe communicated properly. Most importantly, in the 25-minute-long unsuccessful hunt for an unexisting British submarine, most of the survivors from both ships had perished in the cold water of the North Sea. A total of 606 men were lost, leaving only 60 survivors. On their way back to Germany, the initial belief of Naval Command back at Wilhelmshaven was that the flotilla had run into a German minefield, as the presence of enemy submarines was thought unlikely. However, late at night, the Naval Command received a report from the Luftwaffe that one of their bombers had engaged and destroyed ships in the general area of the sinking. Subsequent reports finally confirmed that it was a friendly fire attack. Once believed to be a relatively easy mission, Operation Vikinga was a complete failure for the German armed forces and a humiliating blow to their reputation and morale. The most tragic part was how avoidable the whole thing could have been if the Kriegsmarine and the Luftwaffe had worked together. Still, the official German investigation into the events of February 21, 1940, showed that there had been clearly inadequate communication errors. No one was officially held accountable, and no court-martials were convened.